because they were probably promoted for how well they do their job. We still promote people for technical capability, not for people capability. So I'm promoted for what I know, and so I see my job and my being as the expert. That's who I am, that people come to me and I'm the one who has the answers. I'm the one who knows. Then they automatically shift into, here's the answer, here's what to do, because it's a part of who I am. And I think, Ruth, that's the most difficult transformation, to move from being the expert to being the coach. They don't, you have to let go, and it's not just taking on skills. There's a let go there. I mean, think about delegation. In order to fully delegate, you have to trust and allow them to make mistakes. And that's so hard for leaders to do. It's just easier for me to do it myself or tell them what to do.
Have you ever walked into a conversation thinking, I've got this, and walked out wondering why it didn't land? Sometimes it's not what we say, it's how we show up. Welcome to Clarity is Power, where we have real conversations on leadership, purpose, and confidence. I'm your host, Ruth Saw, and today is a very special conversation. I'm joined by Dr. Marsha Reynolds, all the way from the United States, a globally recognized Master Certified Coach, a former president of International Coach Federation, ICF, and founder of Co-Visioning. What I really appreciate about Marsha is that she genuinely understands leaders, not just in theory, but in real life. Before becoming one of the most influential voices in coaching, she led training departments inside global organizations. So she understands the pressure leaders are under, the KPIs, the performance expectations, and the emotional weight of carrying both results and people. She is also the best-selling author of Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And today marks the launch of a newly revised edition. This book has influenced thousands of leaders and coaches around the world for better thinking, ownership, and more meaningful conversations. Hi, Marsha. I'm so glad you are here. Welcome, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for asking me to join you. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I'm so delighted to have you with us. Before we dive in, you've been inside organization, you've been training, you've been carrying performance pressure yourself. What made you shift from training leaders to coaching on how they think?
Yeah. Well, in my first company, the training department was actually dumped in my lap. I was supporting the training department, and then she decided to get her doctorate and asked me to run the training. And my first thing that I had to do was the management training, and so I got the books and I read and the facilitator's guide and it actually went well. And I think the best part was that I admitted I'd never been a leader and that we were going to learn together. And, it was fascinating. But from that job, I went into technology, and it was kind of a different experience because the pressures were even more. And, people, a lot of it, well, I don't even have time for that. And, we just have to get things done. When we get through this chaos, I'll think about doing the right thing. But, the chaos doesn't end. I mean, that was like many years ago, and it's still going on. And so I went and got a second master's degree in adult learning. And continued to go to workshops and conferences and try to improve my training. And people loved the training. We had fun, we had participation, we played games. But then when they'd go out and they'd try what they learned, as soon as it felt awkward, they'd go back to old behavior. And, the statistics for the retention of learning have changed only slightly over the years, that training really is just to inspire people to try. But if there's no one there to work with them and to talk through those awkward moments, they often just forget. So it was the last day of my last job that I was going to start a training business because that's what I knew. And somebody sent me this article on this new thing called coaching. It was 1995. And I said, well, this sounds interesting. And because I'm constant researcher of learning, I decided I watched to go watch a demonstration, and I knew there was something important, so I signed up for coaching school right away. And that was even before we had competencies in the International Coaching Federation. We helped to start the organization and develop the competencies. So people really knew how to do this thing. But it inspired me to go get my doctorate in what was called neuro leadership. And yeah, like what really goes on in the brain of leaders and people they're trying to lead. And that's when I truly discovered why coaching works. And the two main aspects, not just the skills, but the presence that we bring that truly can change people's minds. And so if you're trying to get someone to sustain a change over time, there has to be a shift in their creative center of their brain, that it's like it's metaphorically a rewiring, that they actually see themselves differently, which means that they will more confidently sustain the new behaviors that they try. And for leaders to know that when they're working with people, just telling people what to do is the same thing. It doesn't last, and it may not even last 24 hours, but you have to get them thinking differently in order to actually implement what you want. So I got very excited about coaching and very passionate about it to this day, and I continue to learn because I'm a researcher by nature. And whatever I learn, I want to throw into my books to help people, to help
Yeah.
leaders, to help coaches, to help all of us to have more meaningful conversations.
Yeah, I love what you say. I mean, you were in coaching in 95, a couple of
Mhm.
decades ago. It's only in the recent times where people are talking a lot more about coaching. So
Yeah.
you've gone a lot ahead of us in that, and now backed up by brain science, how to transform people. It is true. I mean, I come from training. Training is
Mhm.
good. We still need to impact people with knowledge, but the true transformation is sometimes a conversation away. And that's where,
Mm,
most leaders,
mm.
I was sharing with someone and she said, most leaders now operate like chat GPT. When someone comes to them, they're like sprout the answer to their, to their team members. But is that the effective leader we want, right? I mean, do we allow them to take ownership with this type of conversation? So let's
Mhm.
talk about presence. You mentioned
Yeah.
you mentioned about, we've heard about executive presence, how to
Mhm.
command a room, how to speak with confidence. But
Mhm.
lately, I've been hearing a lot more about empathy and
Mhm.
emotional presence. So, from your
Yeah.
experience, can you share with us what is emotional presence and how does it look like in a high pressure leadership conversation?
Right, right. I always say that back when I was in corporate, we always wanted our leaders to be present, to show they cared about us and make us feel important, but we didn't expect it. But the generations in the workplace today, they expect it, and if you want to keep your high achievers, the paying attention to show you care, to continue to let them know they're significant is how you keep them, and so the whole idea of presence is not new, but it's increasing in importance in environments for retention, for productivity, that 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 energy that I give you that shows that I'm here for you. I want to help you achieve your goals, not just my goals and the company's goals, but your goals. And when you know just from my presence that, wow, this person really cares about my future, and that they're going to help me work through these difficulties so I learn on my own. It makes such a difference. It was years ago that Daniel Pink came out with intrinsic motivation that lasts. External motivation, pay them more, soon they'll want more. But intrinsic, giving them autonomy uh, and helping them learn to do it on their own, not have to come to you for answers all the time. Mastery, that I can get better, and purpose, that I know I'm significant. But we give that to them first with presence. So, when I come to you and I say, I'm here for you, you better feel that or the person won't trust you. And then their brain shuts down anyway. And that's why they don't remember what you say. because you're already, making them a little anxious or disappointed or discouraged with your emotional state. So it's the emotions we bring that creates the foundation of the energy that opens the exchange for learning or closes it down. So regardless of what's going on, and like I said, it was chaotic in the 80s. To say it's worse now, well, I remember when we were moving into smart technology and how uh, the fear that created, and the competition to who was going to be first, and all of that was going on then, and then bringing it into the 90s. It's always there. So can you just stop for a moment? Turn around and look at the person and show, I am interested in you and I am interested in your future with your energy. And that only takes a few seconds. So don't tell me you don't have time.
I think that's so important because most people know that when people leave a company, they don't
Yeah,
leave because of the job or anything. Most
right.
of the time, they leave because of the manager
The
and and
manager and the team.
and the team.
And the manager's energy is dictates how well the team works together. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the way we lead ourselves, the way we lead our energy actually makes a difference and an impact of our teams.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating, right?
I
Yeah.
ask the question of leaders. So what happens when you walk into a room? Before you sit down, what's going on? Do people get really quiet? You know, and they just sit there wondering what you're going to say? Are they excited to see you? And yay, come on in. And even more important, what happens when you leave? What's the emotion of the team when you leave the room? You the leader sets the emotional tone. So and again, will people work together, um, or will they be afraid and worried about you know risk taking and being punished for mistakes? So they don't want to cooperate, and then you breed competition. So with teams and with individuals, it's so critical that you're aware of what is the energy I'm bringing into the room, and what is the energy I'm leaving behind.
Yeah, that's such an insightful thought. Allows us to be really taking notice and being self-aware of what kind of energy we bring into the
Mhm,
room. Just taking a
mhm.
look at how our team behaves before and
Yeah.
after our presence. That's a good sign for us to take a note. But I mean, to be honest, leaders nowadays are facing a lot of pressure. So
Yeah.
quite often, leaders walk into conversations stressed,
Mhm.
distracted, with a
Yeah.
fix-it mode, even if though they have good intentions, they are burnt out. But what happens when emotional presence is missing? What
Yeah.
does it do to trust, engagement, and ownership over time?
Right. Well, again, remembering that. So when the brain sees whoever is the socially dominant person in the room, which is the leader, the brain then regulates with their emotional state. So if I work for you and you come in and you're all stressed out, then what happens then is I take on your stress. Okay. And either I take it on and I get afraid, or I may even get resistant, because you're coming in, it's like, oh, we have to deal with that again. And either one of those, that's fight or flight. Either one of those emotions, what happens is, again, the brain shuts down blood flow. Blood flow is shut down to the brain, and it goes to your large muscle group so you can prepare to fight or flight, which is, just the natural state. So I am not capable of being my most creative self, my most innovative self, and be doing my best work, because I'm afraid. So I'm not going to be thinking clearly, and maybe missing some things. So recognizing that when you walk in, that's what you're bringing. You're going to impact the ability of people to actually hear you, and then and to maybe even think of other possibilities. They may not even feel they can, because you're in such a rush and you have to fix things fast. So you can even be creating what we call learned helplessness, where people just say, okay, just tell me what to do, just tell me what to do. And they quit thinking for themselves. And I always ask leaders, so what are your main responsibilities for the company? And they're always saying, the numbers, the productivity. And, honestly, they're missing their biggest responsibility is to develop other leaders. Because what happens if something happens to them. And to sustain the sustainability of a company, and especially one that wants to grow, you got to have bench and people who can think on their feet for themselves. You got to be developing other leaders, whether you have a position to give them or not. It doesn't matter. They want to be developed, autonomy, mastery. They want to know wherever they go that they have a future, and they want to think for themselves. So being able to, before you go in the room, to just let that go and remember, your purpose. Why am I here? Do I want them to be also be know that we have to move forward, and they want to give it their all. They want to give their best effort. That I need to inspire that. Do I want them to creatively think of solutions because what we're doing doesn't work? Then I have to open their minds. The energy I bring in is going to impact their creativity and their motivation. So you really, as a responsibility of a leader, is to manage your emotional presence and also keep thinking, I need to help people think, not just do.
Wow, you mentioned something really crucial, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a shift. So you're
Mm-hmm.
saying that our self mastery of
Yeah.
how we manage our energy, it may
Mm-hmm.
just take a while to take a breather.
Yeah.
And that presence that we give to our team
Yeah.
actually impacts the psychological safety of the person or the team, for this person or team to be able to think more creatively
Yeah.
rather than tell me what to do, fight or flight mode. And that's not very healthy. That's why, leaders always, every time I talk to leaders are saying, I'm always fighting fire. People always need me to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Right. So whose fault is that?
So maybe it's not true. Maybe it's just taking a few seconds to
Yeah.
master our presence. And that
Right.
could change the whole formula. We don't have to be firefighting all the time
Right.
and spoon feeding people all the time. Yeah,
Right.
I think as a leader, what I love about this quote someone shared with me is that a leader needs to manage, honor results, and people at the same time,
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
which is why I love your book, Coach the Person, Not the Problem.
Thank you.
That title itself is already very, very powerful. This book has been translated multiple languages worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
But share with us, Amarcia, why do leaders default to quickly solving the problem instead of staying with the person?
Yeah. Well, besides the fact that they think they don't have time, it's actually a big part of their identity. And this is why it's difficult for them to make the shift, because they were probably promoted for how well they do their job. We still promote people for technical capability, not for people capability. So I'm promoted for what I know, and so I see my job and my being as the expert. And so if that's who I am, that people come to me and I'm the one who has the answers, I'm the one who knows, then they automatically shift into, here's the answer, here's what to do, because it's a part of who I am. And I think, Ruth, that's the most difficult transformation, to move from being the expert to being the coach. you know they don't, you have to let go. And it's not just taking on skills. There's a let go there. I mean, think about delegation. In order to fully delegate, you have to trust and allow them to make mistakes. And that's so hard for leaders to do. It's just easier for me to do it myself or tell them what to do. Yet, you want people to think for themselves. You want to develop leaders in your team. You've got to let go and trust that. So you have to let go of that sense of who I am as the expert in order to be the thinking partner. I love the CEO of Microsoft said, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And that's the shift. The shift in identity must take place in order to shift in sustainable behavioral change. Yeah.
That's the reality of leadership now. With things moving so fast, no leader can actually know everything and have
Right.
all the answers. But it's really an uncomfortable season for, you're right, it's all about
Yeah.
identity, about
Uh-huh.
shifting our identity on what we can bring to the team. You know,
Yeah.
people talk about executive presence, but I realize that executive presence
Uh-huh.
gets you noticed, but
Mhm.
emotional presence gets you trusted.
I
And
love that. That's great. Yeah.
the important part for us to work as a team, to
Mhm.
trust as a team, to collaborate,
Mhm.
to come up with ideas together.
Yeah. Right.
You mentioned just now that, you know, leaders need to create space for others and
Mhm.
they need to learn the inner work, like how to manage what's inside them, right? Take a
Yeah.
breather or something like that. Do you have any suggestions? What do leaders need to notice or regulate internally before they
Yeah.
step into the room?
Absolutely. You know, one thing that happened early in my business was I had this audio company back in the day when we were listening to, CDs and instead of podcasts. And I had written a book called Outsmart Your Brain, and a lot of it was about presence and managing our emotions. It was based in emotional intelligence. And they said, could you do something for people based on athletes? Because you say presence is so important, but athletes need to be present in that clutch moment. You know, leaders talk about everything's going on, but just think about a top athlete when the game's on the line, And so I actually went out and interviewed top athletes in like 5 different sports to create this program. And it was fascinating because they all had a routine that they did that I'm sure sports psychologists were teaching them. But, for all of us in that moment where the game's up to you, that's what you feel. What they said was, it's not about telling myself you're a winner, you're great. They said, if whatever I'm thinking is taking me away from being present and doing my best. And my brain, if I'm saying you're a winner, my brain's saying, no, you're not, you're a loser. I think that just happened in the Olympics recently, that it comes in. So you can't just use self-talk. So they said the best thing is just clear your mind. Breathe, clear your mind, and breathing helps you do that. Take a breath, exhale, clear your mind, and then drop your awareness to the center of your body. And in most martial arts, it's a centering because your greatest strength comes from your center. So if you drop your awareness to your center, you can do anything because you will have muscle memory. You will go back to doing the right thing. But what I added from emotional intelligence is once you're in your center, remember 1 or 2 emotions you want to feel in this moment. So do you want to come in with hope, with calm, with passion, with care for the people that you're with? So I often say courage and care, courage and care, courage to stay present, and I care about my people. So take a breath, clear your mind, drop your energy to the center right below your navel and say courage and care, or calm and curious, calm and curious. What do they think? And then walk in. You can do that in a matter of seconds. The athletes do it just like that. And then they hit that, that 3-pointer, or they, hit the home run. And they say, when I do that, I win. I win. So leaders can do that too.
I literally felt the shift when you shared about calm and care, courage, calm and courage. Just simple, practical tips that we
Yeah.
all can take away, take a breather before we walk in, being aware what energy we're bringing to the
Hmm.
team and
Yes.
to ourselves.
And to embody
Yeah,
it. Don't just think it, embody it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's just really, I think only English word, the mind and the heart and the gut is different words. But in Chinese, it's actually the same. So I think it's just really going back to ancient wisdom about, being centered.
Absolutely. Do you know every
And
language has that they have sayings of I should have listened to my gut. I should have, listened to my heart. Every language,
yes.
knowing that wisdom comes from the gut and the heart, not just the brain.
Yeah. And you said courage and care.
Yeah.
Courage is the guts.
It's
Guts,
the
right?
guts.
We say in
Yes.
English language, you have the guts to do something.
Yeah,
And
right.
care, do I care about you is the heart. So
Mhm.
courage and care is
And
really,
curiosity.
and curiosity. Oh, wow. So then you align as one full person
Yeah.
into the room. I think that's being fair to the people we lead, and being fair to ourselves. Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Wow.
Okay.
So I really want to pause here because I think what you're saying here is so important. It sounds fluffy to some people, like, oh, they just want results. But presence isn't about being soft, being not
No.
knowing the answer. It's about being centered. It's about being available and present enough for real thinking, for ideas to happen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very
and it
well
doesn't
said.
take long.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. You've got a moment.
Yes, our life, our team is more precious than 2 minutes, just to center ourselves. So, Marsha, can you share a story from your work where you experienced a leader shifted on how they show up emotionally and how it
Uh-huh.
completely changed the outcome of their conversation or what they were doing?
Yeah. Well, since early in my work, I was one of the first people to teach emotional intelligence in the world. And because I found the book right when he wrote it, and I said, this is good stuff. And because I have a degree in instructional design, I'm like, I can write a program. And when the US government came to me, they said, we want you to teach this thing, emotional intelligence, in our leadership programs. And we went online, and the only people who teach it are you and Daniel Goleman. That's all they can find. And he costs too much. So I got to go work with all these PhD psychologists and neuroscientists, and we were learning, together about this using emotions, and so many leaders, when they came to me for coaching, came to me for emotional intelligence. That was like my first expertise before I expanded out. And so there's many of them that came to me about, well, I get angry easily. I think that was the main thing. And I even had a client just last year that came to me for the same thing, and he was the VP of sales, and he said, "I just get so irritated. I've got to change this because it shuts them down, and then we don't have conversation." And it was so amazing but he really wanted to change. There has to be a willingness. And so we worked a lot on how can you, show up differently, this exercise. So it wasn't just coaching, I was giving him some tools to use, and he kept coming back and saying, it's so amazing when I go in and I'm centered and I'm not anxious. We have these amazing conversations, and I didn't even realize the impact I had, when I thought, we need to get things done. We need to get the sales up. That I didn't realize how much I was creating the difficulties we were having with my emotional state, not just the marketplace. And so, at the end of our time together, and it was just 6 months, he says, not only am I having great results with my team worldwide, he says, but my wife is very happy now too. And he said, she's even going to take me to this retreat center in Japan. We're going to spend a week together because she says, now I see you're open to it. So yeah, and I have multiple stories of that just that slight shift. And to not be the know-it-all, but to be curious and be the learn-it-all. The difference that it's made with the leaders I've coached over time.
Wow, I love it. And it's a practical, simple
Mhm.
shift to
Yes.
to not be the know-it-all, and
Mhm.
to center ourselves and be the learn it
Learn it
all,
all. Yeah.
about people, about others. And not only this skill not only impacts us in our workplace,
Mhm.
but impacts us in all our relationships.
All of them. Yeah, when I first started being a coach, my friends were all saying, you listen better now. And I'm like, was that a compliment? Or so I took it that way.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, so for listeners out there, if they are still, juggling work, family pressure, and expectations,
Mhm.
besides that, is there anything else you would suggest for them to do this small shift to make them show up with more presence this week?
Yeah. Well, what I talked to you about identity, in fact, that's one of the big things that's in the new version of Coach the Person, Not the Problem. I'm doing this because it's behind me. Is I really have gotten in the past few years the importance of who I am in the moment, who how I'm showing up and how I'm defining who I am and what's most important. Because otherwise we don't sustain even the presence that we bring. So to remember that, again, I'm not necessarily the expert. I'm the thinking partner. I want us all to think together for ourselves. So when you're breathing that in your emotions, to also remember, I'm here, to help them think. I'm here. I'm a servant leader. I'm serving, their growth. Whatever it is that you want to bring in, the person you want to bring in, remember that before you go in.
Wow, powerful. I think it's a lot of self-awareness about
Mm-hmm.
who we want to be, how we want to be, how we want to show up, the reason why, and to be able to
Mm-hmm.
explain it with strength, not as a sign of weakness. And
Yes.
I love the servant leadership hat, right? I mean, just a framing that how do I manage myself to help my team think, to help
Yeah.
my team grow, to help this person I'm talking to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and find solutions for himself or herself. I
Yes.
think if we were just to wear that hat, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
build leaders who will think for themselves
Yeah.
rather than us having to firefight all the time and
Right.
not being able to take leave in enjoy. All a lot of leaders I coach
Mm-hmm.
or I train, they say, "Oh, I can't take leave in peace. People keep calling me for decisions." But if we manage this well, we maybe could enjoy our holiday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It'll relieve stress too and make you live longer and in a healthy way.
So
Yeah.
today is the launch of the new edition of Coach the
Mhm.
Person, Not the Problem. And if they pick up the book this week, what do you
Mhm.
hope they experience when they read it?
Yeah. Well, it's a book for leaders, not just coaches, and to find how you can weave in the presence, the way of approaching, even when you're giving feedback, to come in and let them know I'm here to help you succeed. And to really focus on what is the goal that we're working on together before you even give them the feedback. So there's all kinds of things on presence, and I moved that up to the front of the book. So that will be helpful. And then, as you teach, some really basic coaching skills that they can use a coaching approach to their conversations.
Powerful. And for listeners out there, Marsha has a special gift for us, a special private link. So if you
Yeah.
go ahead and purchase the book, I will have it in the show notes. But once you've purchased the book, she has a private link for you to fill in your details and punch in your proof of purchase. And she has a special gift for you. Marsha, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. It's a toolkit, and it goes through the highlights. Actually, it's a nice executive summary of the book. So you can go through the book and you can highlight and this and that. But instead of going back through and reading your highlights, you can go to the toolkit, and in each page has highlights and tips of how you can apply what you learned in the book. So it's a fairly detailed toolbox that they will get and use it then like a workbook along with the book.
Fantastic. It's like a mentor kit.
Yes.
For free, a special mentoring kit or summary kit for us. And it cannot be found anywhere else, not even in the book. But this link is actually in the podcast show notes. So do make sure you hop on March 3rd on the launch date. Purchase your copy right away. Get it downloaded, Kindle or paperback. And straight away go to this link to redeem your toolkit to accompany you as you read, or even if you don't have time to read, this toolkit is able to help you immediately with summarized content as well. So Marsha, thank you so much. This conversation is really about a reminder that leadership sometimes isn't about having the right answers. It's about creating the right space.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well said.
I'm so looking forward to speak to you in our next episode where we're going to build on this and get really practical about how leaders can take a coaching approach in everyday conversations without losing authority. So to our listeners, if you found this helpful, please click follow or subscribe on whichever platform you're hearing this, and do share this with someone who may benefit from this. And remember, clarity is power, and that power is you. See you very soon.